My fiance and I love hiking. We've had strange moments on trails before, but nothing like what happened a few weeks ago. We went for a short hike at a state park we visited dozens of times. Since it was just a quick trip before dinner, we didn't pack our usual gear. No knives, no pepper spray. I even joked, "It'll be fine. We've done this one plenty of times." The first half was normal. The air was calm, the woods were quiet. Then, as we came around a bend, we saw a woman standing off to the side, crying softly. Not loud or dramatic, just quietly, like she didn't even realize anyone else was there. A few feet ahead of her stood a man with his back turned, pushing a stroller down a rocky trail, a trail where a stroller made absolutely no sense. We kept walking, trying not to stare. About 5 minutes later, we decided to turn back because we were starving. On our way back, we saw the man again, still pushing the stroller. Out of curiosity, I glanced inside. It was empty. No baby, no blanket, just an empty stroller being shoved through the woods. Without thinking, I whispered to my fiancé, "There's no fucking baby in there." I thought we were far enough away that he wouldn't hear me. We weren't. A moment later, my fiancé looked over his shoulder and said quietly, "He's staring at us." I didn't look back. I didn't have to. I could feel it, the weight of his stare. Then came the sound of footsteps behind us, picking up speed. He was following us. We started walking faster. He sped up too. Every time we looked back, he was still there. Not close enough to reach us, but always visible. Always watching. We passed the crying woman again. She didn't even look up. The stroller was gone now. The man in the blue hoodie was still there, moving faster. That's when we ran. My chest was tight. I could barely breathe. Every time I glanced back, I saw flashes of blue moving through the trees. The trail twisted sharply, and each time we turned a corner, we'd lose sight of him for just a second. Then, there he was again. Still walking, still following. Finally, after what felt like forever, we caught up to another group of hikers ahead of us. As soon as we did, he was gone, vanished into the woods. We sprinted to the parking lot, jumped in the car, and tore out of there. The whole drive home, I kept second-guessing myself. What if there was a baby? What if he just wanted to confront us? But deep down, I knew something was seriously wrong. I haven't gone back to that entrance since. Sometimes I hike from other parts of the park, but lately, I've started noticing baby clothes scattered along the trails. Little socks, a onesie, and every time, that same cold feeling crawls up my spine. Almost a year ago, December 2024, my partner and I decided to spend a weekend in a yurt in western central Minnesota near Sandstone for her birthday. We picked the spot because it came with a hot tub listed as an amenity. Little did we know, it was actually a clawfoot bathtub with a campfire underneath. We drove up from Chicago and made our usual small-town grocery stop before heading in. The road to the yurt was primitive, winding, hard to find on a map, and very remote. When we finally arrived, we noticed a cabin where the owners usually stayed. They weren't there, and a couple of other yurts nearby. We were completely alone. The air was cold and dry. We stood there for a moment, breathing it in, the quiet, the solitude, the peace away from the city. Then, a truck pulled up in the muddy roundabout. It slowed, stopped for just a moment, and then quickly drove away. It wasn't the owners. Ever since we'd arrived, we'd been hearing gunshots echoing in the distance, shotguns by the sound of it. We shrugged it off. Probably hunters, we thought. It's the Northwoods after all. We settled in, cracked open a couple beers, and decided to explore. We followed a trail past the cabin down to a frozen lake, and that's when we saw something hanging from the trees. As we got closer, we realized what it was. Severed deer parts, legs, a torso, dangling in the cold air, veins, cartilage, everything. Then we looked down. The deer's head was sitting on top of a woodshed, staring straight at us, tongue hanging out, facing directly toward our yurt. My partner, a vegetarian and animal lover, turned away, horrified. I tried to make sense of it. Probably hunters again, I told myself. We texted the owners. It took them a while to respond. When they finally did, they said it was just their backwoods neighbors. Every country home has them, I suppose. That reassured us. A little. But we were still uneasy, still isolated, still the only people on the property. We returned to the yurt, drank some whiskey, and eventually went to bed, exhausted. The yurt didn't have a lock, but we figured folks are friendly up here, right? The next morning, we woke up feeling refreshed and ready for a birthday hike. I made breakfast, but we ran out of firewood. Back to the old woodshed. As I walked up, I saw that same deer head in the distance, still pointed right at me, as if waiting for my return. I grabbed the firewood without making eye contact and hurried back. Later, we explored the edge of the frozen lake. I came across a pile of old rusted tins, a pop-top beer can, a Folgers coffee tin from the 1950s, little glass bottles of different colors. I've studied history, so to me it felt like a mini archaeological dig. I spent the afternoon unearthing things and brought them back to our site. We cleaned them off and displayed them proudly on the picnic table. Later, we wandered farther down the road into some open public land, passing the whiskey bottle back and forth. That's when we literally stumbled upon a rusted car door. Looked like it was from an old pre-60s white truck, half buried in the ground. I asked my partner to take a picture of me with it. She did. And right then, my phone died. It stayed dead for the rest of the weekend. Something about all those relics started to feel off. Like someone had packed up and left this land in a hurry decades ago. That thought stayed with me as we walked back to camp. That night, the wind picked up. The cold was biting. We made a strong fire and eventually fell asleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up freezing. The fire had gone out, the potbelly stove was cold, but it wasn't the chill that woke me. It was the sound of something moving around the yurt, circling us. I nudged my partner awake. She whispered, "Maybe it's another guest looking for their yurt." It had to be 3 or 4 in the morning. My phone was dead, so I couldn't check. Then came another sound, like a 3-gallon bucket rolling over the ground. Rolling, rolling, getting louder and louder. That almost made sense, because we had used a bucket to fill the hot tub earlier. But the clearing was small, maybe 15 by 30 feet. There was no way a bucket could roll that freely, that long, without hitting something. The noise just kept going. We jammed a broomstick against the door handle to keep it shut and kept our hatchet beside the bed. My eyes were wide open for what felt like hours. I must have fallen asleep at some point, because the next thing I knew, daylight was pouring in. And I'd never felt so relieved in my life. I stepped outside. The 3-gallon bucket sat exactly where we'd left it, upright, untouched. Nothing had moved, nothing disturbed. These woods were some of the creepiest I've ever experienced. There's something about that part of the country, the Northwoods in the dead of winter, that makes you feel utterly alone, empty, but like something is always watching. I left the archaeological findings behind, of course. naturally. After college, my friend Jude and I went on a ton of camping trips together. Most of them were in Montana. That's where we both lived at the time. And that's where this story takes place. We had this habit of going on completely spontaneous camping road trips. We just pick a direction, drive, and find somewhere cool to hike and camp. Sometimes we'd plan a 1 or 2 day backpacking route, but more often than not, we'd end up setting up our tent at an empty campground or off some random Forest Service road right next to the car. Looking back, it was wildly irresponsible. We never told anyone where we were going, never had a plan, and almost never had cell service. If something had happened to us, no one would have even known where to start looking. Anyway, the creepy camping story I have happened in 2020, right in the middle of our spontaneous trip phase. I'd taken a week off work, and we decided to go up to Glacier National Park to hike and camp for several days. Because of COVID, camping inside the park wasn't allowed, so we had to find random spots to sleep each night. We stayed at one campground about 180 miles from West Glacier on the way up, and after that, we found a new spot every night, each one between 10 and 25 miles apart. It wasn't easy to find places that were both legal and unoccupied, so we often spent hours driving up random forest roads looking for somewhere secluded to crash. But we always managed to find something. The first night was near Drummond, about 180 miles from West Glacier. Early in the morning, when it was just starting to get light, I woke up to the sound of something walking around our tent. This campground had a few other campers, so at first I thought maybe someone was just heading to the bathroom. But the steps were heavy and deliberate, like whoever it was wasn't trying to be quiet. The ground was covered in grass, so I couldn't hear clear footsteps, more like the soft crunch and sifting of twigs. Whatever it was came from the side facing the woods, not the road or other campsites. I remember thinking two things. I'm glad I made sure Jude locked the car, and I really hope that's just a deer. I was exhausted and didn't want to think too hard about it, so I just lay there until the sounds stopped. I don't even remember hearing them walk away. They were just gone. Jude was out cold. He was on prescribed sleeping pills and could sleep through anything. When we got up later, I didn't mention it. The second night, we were closer to Glacier and found a pull-off in the woods, about 10 miles from the park entrance. Not a real campground, but there were other people camping out of their cars nearby. Our tent was right next to the car since the space was tight. Again, in the early morning light, I woke up to footsteps. This time, I knew it was a person. The grass wasn't as tall, and I could clearly hear heavy steps circling our tent, then moving around the car. Once again, the sound came from the woods, not the road. It lingered a while, then just stopped. No footsteps walking away, nothing. I convinced myself it was someone hiking nearby, cutting through camp as a shortcut. I fell back asleep and again didn't tell Jude. The third night was rough. It was pouring rain, and we just finished a 13-mile hike. It took us 3 hours to find a spot, a pull-off near Hungry Horse Dam. The place felt weird, too close to the road to be truly remote, but still isolated enough to make us uneasy. The dirt pull-off went about 50 yards into the woods and ended with a mound of dirt. There was a broken fire pit and scattered glass, so we set up near the entrance. It was raining hard. Jude was walking around barefoot in the mud while I poked at the fire pit. Then we called it a night. I noticed too late that Jude hadn't locked the car, but he was already asleep with the keys in his pocket. I was too tired and too cold to deal with it. Just before dawn, I woke up again. Something was moving around in the woods above us. At first, I thought it was a deer. The steps were lighter this time. But then, It came down into the pull-off and started walking around the car. Our tent was maybe 3 feet away from it, so I could hear everything clearly. The ground was muddy, and the steps were soft but deliberate. Then I heard it, the car door opening. That sound snapped me wide awake. I sat there frozen, listening. There were no other cars nearby. Whoever this was had walked here. Then the door shut. I sat up fully, shaking Jude awake. "I'm gonna go check that out," I told him. To this day, I don't know why I did that. Maybe I was too tired to be scared. Maybe it was just instinct. I slipped on my shoes, unzipped the tent, and stepped out. Everything was silent. The car was closed, nobody around. I looked at the ground. It was soaked, muddy, but the only footprints were mine and Jude's barefoot ones from the night before. I followed them around the car, the fire pit, even into the clearing. Nothing. Then I made another stupid decision. I went past the fire pit into the woods. There I found this weird makeshift shelter made out of wooden pallets. Inside were some old blankets and women's undergarments. For a split second, I thought there was a body inside, but it was empty, waterlogged, abandoned, untouched for a long time. I backed away slowly, returned to the car, and just sat there in silence until Jude woke up. We packed up our things without saying a word. The fourth night, we found a much nicer spot on the west side of the park, down below a dirt road. A man briefly wandered into our camp that evening, but he looked harmless, just scouting a place for his family to set up, and that was the end of it. Later that night, though, I woke up again to sounds. Something was moving around behind the tent, near the car. By that point, I was more annoyed than afraid. It went on for a while, then stopped. I eventually drifted back to sleep. We woke up before sunrise to pack up. My alarm startled both of us, and I didn't think about the noise again until we were already driving away. Then Jude turned to me and said, "Have you been hearing something outside our tent every morning?" I froze. "Yes. Remember when I got up to check yesterday?" He nodded. "Yeah. It's weird. I've been hearing it too every morning." We talked about it for a bit, about how neither of us had brought it up before. It was like something had made us both decide not to talk about it. To this day, I get chills thinking about it. I can't believe I actually got up and went outside that one morning. I've camped plenty of times since, had deer, elk, even bears wander through camp. But I've never had the same thing happen night after night, in different locations. We never camped in the same place twice, and yet, every morning, something was there. Jude still brushes it off like it was nothing. But for me, every time I tell this story, it feels more unsettling. What do you think it was? A string of weird coincidences? Or something else following us through the woods?